I am back on the Talk Music Podcast. I'm delighted again to be joined by the one and only Steve Gadd. The 12th of November, he is playing London as he is on the 13th of November as well. And it's going to get bigger and better because Glasgow is the scene of all things jazz on the 16th of November, then Edinburgh on the 17th of November. And that is with Blicher, Hemmer, and Gadd. Tickets are available. It's the only show in town, or shows in town, I should say, and it's not to be missed. Steve, how are you? Great to see you again.
I'm good, Scott. Thank you. How about you? You good?
I'm good. Excited to be chatting with you today as always. It's funny because the last time we spoke, for whatever reason, afterwards, I looked on your website and I clicked on the discography, in which you download a PDF, and your career is so vast that I was forever scrolling down, and I recognized that there's so many names on that list of the people that you played with that I haven't even asked you about yet, despite the fact that we've spoken about 4 or 5 times in the podcast. So we're going to get to all that today. But big business to be discussed. Are you looking forward to coming over to the UK again?
Oh, yeah. I always like to come to the UK. I got a lot of friends there, and we've played this club, before. I think this is a new location for the club that we're playing in London.
Hmm.
But yeah, and this is a nice. It's a fun band. They're nice guys, and we have a good. Not only the music is fun, but it's a good hang. So that's good.
I can remember when this band started, and I can't believe this is the 10-year anniversary. That's gone on very quick, is it not?
Yeah, listen, man, time flies. You know what I
Time fly,
mean?
time
Yeah,
flies when you're having fun, and there is fun to be had because the venue you're describing is Pizza Express. Now I would love to play there myself. A lot of jazz has been performed in that venue. Who did you play with before? Did you play it with this band
yeah.
before? Great.
Mm-hmm. With
No,
Blicher Hemmer.
it's a really good venue, and you're doing 2 nights there, and as you said, it's in a different spot, which is really really good. Obviously the band's going great, very very popular. The last time I seen you guys play was, of course, in Glasgow. It was a tremendous gig, and for more info on tickets, make sure everybody visits the site. Of course, bleakerhemmergadd.com to be exact, and tickets are available there. So it's fascinating. We're talking about the UK and you coming over. Other than the band, what memories do you have of performing in the UK in general out with this band?
Oh, well, I mean, first thing that comes to mind is the Royal Albert Hall I did with Eric, and but I've also done some things. Well, we did things with James Taylor, and I've done things there with Paul Simon. So, this is over the years, but so I've come back. I've been there a lot of times, and I've played some good music with some different artists, and I have fond memories of it all.
Fond memories of the UK, fond memories in general, I'm sure. Now, as I mentioned, I went on your website and everybody can check this out. The discography is it makes for breathtaking reading, as it were. So I mentioned there, and we spoke earlier, and I said, here's what I'm going to do in this interview. I'm just going to name a name, and you can give like memories of performing with this person. You can give anecdotes, anything, the first thing that kind of springs to mind of kind of performing with this person, or indeed any interaction that you had. And there's a ton of people that we haven't spoken about. My wife Cheryl said, you gotta ask Steve about James Brown. Okay, so what is the story with James? Was this a live thing? Were you in the studio? I'll let you take it from here.
Well, there was Dave Matthews was did arrangements for James Brown. So I did some sessions where for James that he wasn't at, and then there was one that James was there, and uh, let's just say the ones that where he wasn't there went smoother than the ones where he was there. Um, but it's I love James Brown. I love what he did for music, and and I'm very proud to have been a part of it. You know what I mean? Even in a little way. So uh, yeah, I'm happy that it happened.
Absolutely. I'm gonna name another name and throw it at you. Frank Sinatra.
Oh, that was yeah, that was a big one with Quincy Jones produced that, and Phil Ramone recorded it. He was the engineer and probably co-producer. Um, yeah, I mean, I am, and I was then, and I still am a big fan of Frank Sinatra and that whole uh, time where that music was going on. I love that period. And It was a big band. Ray Brown was the bass player. That's the only chance I ever had to play with Ray Brown. Um, it was a great band. Um, I think Bob James was playing piano, and George Benson was playing guitar, and the Brecker brothers were there. I mean, it was just a great band. And the way it happened was we'd go in the morning, the band rehearsed for from 10 to 1, whatever, a couple of charts. And then at 2 o'clock, we'd break 1 o'clock, come back at 2 o'clock, and Frank Sinatra would come in and do a couple of takes on each one of the songs that we had rehearsed. And that was it. There was a lot of security. Um, um, it was actually, it was, because of the security and the amount of respect that Quincy and Phil had for Frank. I mean, it's like when he arrived, the elevator was waiting for him downstairs. You know what I mean? He came up and was very professional, said hello to everybody, went in the booth, did a couple of takes on each thing, and yeah, I mean, it was, it was, it, it was great. It was, I can, it was like I could check one off on my bucket list. You know what I mean?
It's unbelievable. So describe that moment then, because I love it how just casually you were saying, yeah, we rehearsed in the morning, then Frank Sinatra walked in the afternoon,
Yeah.
which is
Plus the
just, it's
fact,
great.
here, the other thing is they had people. It was at A&R 799, which was a big studio,
Yeah.
and they had chairs, at the far end of the studio where certain invited guests could come. So I mean, Roberta Flack was there, Michael Jackson was there, Lionel Hampton. So not only were you dealing with Sinatra, but then you had all these other people that were, like
Wow.
that were my heroes musically. So it was exciting.
When Frank, sorry to keep going on about it here, but when Frank Sinatra walked in that room, I'm assuming he just oozed charisma.
Oh yeah, he was the chairman of the board. You know,
Mm.
a leader of the Rat Pack. I mean, it's just he had that aura about him.
Mhm. So I mean, there's a couple of people that you'd mentioned there that are actually on this list who should have their own story in their own right, as it were. Quincy Jones, I think you've worked with quite a lot. So tell me about Quincy. You mentioned the story about Frank Sinatra there, but what other memories do you have of working with Quincy, if you can share them?
Well, I did one of his. I did one or two of Quincy's own albums. One
Hmm.
was The Dude. I'm not sure what the other one was called. Excuse me, but we did work on The Whiz, and Michael Jackson, was there for some of it, and Quincy always had these huge projects. So it was always a thrill to get a call from him to do something.
So
And he was great, man. He's a great musician. He's a great producer. Um, it was, yeah, you could learn a lot just from being around him. You know what I mean?
I'm sure. I'm sure that's the case. Michael Jackson, he's just organically came up in the first couple of stories there. So, did you have much more interactions with Michael Jackson other than what you're mentioning there?
Not really. I mean, I didn't have a lot of interaction with Frank Sinatra. I didn't have a lot of interaction with the people that were there because they were, the people were talking to Frank and Quincy, and we were the musicians. But uh, I worked with Barry Gibbs. He was producing Diana Ross, and that was another time that Michael was around. He wasn't, singing, but he came to visit and see Diana and him and Barry and Barry's family. They were good friends. So that's the other time I was around Michael, but I not to the point where I really, got to know him. I never worked with him in his band.
Mhm. Absolutely amazing. We're on fire here, and this is a great way of doing it. Mentioning her name, and we're getting these phenomenal stories. Another one that I noticed that kind of jumped out at me as well, Jaco Pistorius. What can you
Oh,
tell us about Jaco?
well, I met Jocko in Los Angeles. We were working on a Michelle Colombier and Larry Carlton project, and we hit it off, right off the bat. You know what I mean? He liked to tell jokes. I liked to tell jokes. We were pretty crazy in those days, and this was before Jocko got really uh, out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when we were still having fun and the music was fun, and he introduced me to Zawinul, and I did some I recorded with on some weather report tracks because Jocko, put that together. So and we did it at Joe Zawinul's house, and so that was just an opportunity to meet another one of my musical heroes. Not only Jocko, but Zawinul. So that was good too.
So just as a drummer playing along with Jaco, did you guys just lock in straight away?
Yeah, it was comfortable. We liked the same kind of he liked the groove,
Hmm.
but he also liked to be able to take it out a little bit, but still grooving. So we were on the same page, musically.
Wow. Another name just to throw at you, Etta James.
Yeah, Etta James. I mean, just it's just another great musician that I got to work with. I love her singing, and plus she was a lady that was, had struggled, with addiction, and so we were, even unspoken connection. You know what I mean? Like I just felt like even without using words that we knew each other. You know what I mean? And musically, we definitely knew each other. So I love being able to uh, play music with her.
Out of all these people that you've played with, I don't know, has there ever been a moment, even somebody like yourself, who's obviously got for decades and decades now has a huge name yourself in the music world. Has there ever been a moment where any of these people on the list that we've mentioned, or anyone at all, has turned around and they've said something about your playing where you've thought to yourself, that means so much to me coming from that person? Is there anything that springs to mind there at all?
No, not really. I mean, every session was you go in and you try to communicate and understand what the artist and the producer, is looking for musically, you know what I mean? And so if we got to the music, that was enough, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? The music spoke for itself.
Mhm.
And you know, and when the music was what everyone sort of was going for, the smiles and joy that they felt was you didn't need words, you know what I mean? We had, you know, accomplished what we set out to do, you know.
Excellent. Is there any artist that you've played with that you felt, oh, that's a kind of different way of working, of getting things together musically? Somebody who's maybe had an unorthodox approach when it comes to
Every
anything?
every every artist has a different approach, you know. Some take a long time to get to where they feel like they've got what they're looking for. Others are quicker. Um, and the process, you know, is pretty much the same where you're trying to communicate with the producer, the artist, and and just knowing when it's time to really go for the take. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, like maybe the keyboard player might have his part together, but some other guys might not, or I might have my thing together, and other people are still working. So you have to know when it's time to really to go for it with everybody, you know. So and that's different in every session, every with every rhythm section. It's about uh, coming to an agreement together about what we're doing musically and how we're going to get there.
Love it. I'm gonna keep throwing names at you if it's okay. Now, one that kind of surprised me, and pleasantly surprised, Josh Stone, um, British artist, female, singer-songwriter for anybody that doesn't know. Do you remember much about that session?
Um, what is the album?
I would need to check. Hold on, give us a wee second. I'll check this one.
Because
So,
I've done things with her live.
oh, have you? I didn't even know that.
Well, I mean, we're not where she was. I was part of the house band, and she was, and you know, like for benefits and things like that.
Okay. Um,
Um,
Color Me Free. I don't know if that's a single or the album. I could be. This is just the first thing I'm looking at here. But so you played live with her. That's she's a great singer, isn't she?
yeah, she sings great. She's great, but I don't, you know, I don't remember really um, getting to know her well in the studio.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It was, I'm not sure if I did a track and she overdubbed the vocal. I don't remember.
I think in your website as well, it's a combination of live and tracked in the studio. So it could have been just a live. I'm not too sure. I'll need to look into that more. Um, Friend Stuart Coleman, who's a great sax player, says make sure you ask Steve about Clarence Clemens, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the sax player. Do you
Oh,
remember?
Clarence with the E Street Band.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. That was another one where it was probably a benefit, and I was in the house band, and he was one of the guests. So that was the time that was the one of the few times that I had a chance to play with Clarence.
Great. It's an amazing list.
He was great, man. You know, and he was a member of a great band. Um, uh, yeah, it was just I was in awe of some of those guys, you know.
Hmm. Hmm. A couple more for you. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Ray Charles.
Well, Ray Charles, I did a thing where he he wasn't there. He overdubbed the vocal. Um, but just just to be on a Ray Charles album was a thrill for me because he's one of my all-time favorites. He was Richard T's favorite piano player.
Wow.
like Ray Charles. So yeah, the fact that I was even in, on the anywhere in the near vicinity was good.
Unbelievable. Did you ever encounter Caro K at all?
No.
No, did you not? Passing them across, it's phenomenal the amount of albums that you're both on. But it's just that I've interviewed Carol a few times as well, and and the times that we spoke, you've never mentioned her, and she's never mentioned yourself. It's just that,
No, I don't think we've ever played together.
yeah, that's unfortunate. Those stars were never aligned, but there is still time for sure. And I was again in that list. It's amazing. And you've mentioned them once there in a conversation. Of course, Barry Gibb, which he's so you've drummed with him. He's produced some records. You've got quite a history together.
We did. He produced Barbara Streisand.
Hmm.
He produced Dionne Warwick. I was on that, and Diana Ross.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I had done a few things with Barry, and it was he's a great producer and he's a great artist himself. Good songwriter. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, yeah, and many people on this list do. It's absolutely phenomenal. Just quite a career for sure. We have spoken two or three times about Clapton and playing his band. I remember us talking about Nathan East and all the great players that's been in Clapton's band over the years. The album that you were on with BB King as well. Um, what's the name of that album? Riding with the King,
Right with the King, yeah.
right?
All of working with Eric was, one of the gigs at the top of my list.
Oh,
It was,
unbelievable.
yeah, it's a great gig, and good music, and I love Eric. I consider him a friend, and and yeah, we have a lot. He and I have a lot of things in common too. So whenever I played with him, I had a ball.
So when we've spoken about the music, you and Clapton and what you guys all put together and everything, but we've never really spoken about what he's like personally. You just touched on it there, so I'm interested to know, like, if there's ever time on all the years that you were touring with this guy and you were recording with this guy, if you can share, what do you guys talk about when you've got some downtime? Give us some insight. I'm kind of fascinated by the man, the myth, the legend that is Eric Clapton. So can you give us some insight about that? What's he's like as a person too?
Well, he's very generous. Um, and the thing that we had in the other than music that we had in common was recovery. So yeah, a lot of times on the road we would. I mean, it's not a secret that he's in recovery. He's he put Crossroads together, uh, a rehab center in Antigua. So we would go to meetings sometimes together, sometimes dinner. But on the road, other than meetings, and there wasn't a lot of hanging. Like everyone's sort of trying to just get ready for the gig. You know what I mean? And so, but the other thing is that one time he invited me over to for New Year's Eve. He used to play this big party, this recovery party, uh, and invited me to play, and that was fantastic. So yeah, I love Eric. I love him. I mean, it's not we don't talk all the time, but I don't have we don't have to. It's like we we sort of pick it up right where we left off.
Yeah, you won't see him for years, and then you bump into him tomorrow, and it's like time hasn't passed at all.
He's my friend.
Hmm. That's good to hear. I'm so glad to hear that because when I see you guys, I used to watch. My dad's no longer with us, but he was like the biggest Eric Clapton fan, right? Just a huge, huge fan. And so I've grown up watching Clapton with yourself on the kit and with Nathan East playing um and the full band. And oh, God forgive me, the name of the rhythm guitar player escapes me. He's Welsh.
Oh, Andy Fairweather Low.
Andy Fairweather, and I've interviewed him in this podcast and everything. Feel really bad about forgetting his name for a sec. So I've grown up watching that band and then the videos and the DVDs, and it just looked like when I remember my dad saying they look as if they get on. They look as if they're a band of brothers. You know, when you see all you guys playing together. So I'm so glad to speak and to get some insight years later and to find out that that's the case and you guys were and are so close. One thing I'd love to share with you as well. I can remember watching like the video, or it might have been DVD at the time. I can't remember, but it's you guys playing Hyde Park, and it's just quite a funny thing. Like at the very end of the show, there wasn't time to go off and come back on to do the encore. So Eric Clapton's obviously at front. He said, "Well, we're there's no time for us to go off, but we're just going to play the encore, assuming that you want it." And of course, the crowd goes ballistic. So I don't know if you remember that, but the Crossroads Festival you mentioned there, some phenomenal performances that you guys played with Eric there. You must have some good memories of that festival too.
Well, there were a bunch of Crossroad festivals, so I played a couple. Yeah, whatever I did with him was really it was really enjoyable. I mean, the people, just for the Crossroads, he got some great artists together. I mean, and it's just that whole thing is at another level. And it's I'm glad to have been a part of it.
And did you ever just going off track here now? The percussionist that played with Eric Clapton for so many years, Ray Cooper. I'm just trying to think and piece together. Did you ever play with Ray Cooper as
Never
well?
played
No,
with, no,
no.
not, we never, I know Ray, but we've never worked together.
Mhm. It's just unbelievable. One final thing about, sorry, just being a super fan of that period of time as well, and just thinking back, I can't believe that Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, they were not only from an area really close together, but they all were in the same band in the Yardbirds. I mean, that's just unbelievable. Did you ever have anything to do with any interactions at all with Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page?
Well, I mean, I knew Jeff Beck. We played, I, I, I think didn't he play with Stanley Clark on some of those early, um, albums that Stanley did?
I'm not too sure.
But I don't know. I didn't know those guys like I knew Eric. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? They were just like, I may have met these guys, but we didn't really play a lot of music together.
It's just unbelievable, as you said, a phenomenal career. And the last time, one of the first times the first time I met you in person was the James Taylor gig at the Hydro in Glasgow, big arena, a phenomenal gig. And it's just interesting to know that the versatility of the different venues and the different sizes that you play at. And the gigs coming up here is very much a kind of it's all hands on deck. I believe the sax player in the band is not only just the sax player in the band, he's the tour manager, he's this is a man of many hats, am I right?
Yeah, he does. He puts it all together. These guys, he's a good guy. And I'm happy to be a part of it, and to be that they want to play. That young guys, are interested in making music with me.
BlicherHemmerGadd.com is where you can get tickets. Make sure you turn up, especially to, well, if you're from my neck of the woods, you want to turn up on the 16th and or the 17th of November. The Glasgow gig is the 16th and the following night. And the Liquid Room in Edinburgh, fantastic venues. And of course, the 12th and the 13th, Pizza Express in London is where you need to be if you're from that area. And you can get your tickets on the website. Now, beyond this UK tour, Steve, what else have you got coming up in the pipeline? Is there anything you could share with us just now?
Well, after that, I'll be back in Europe, at the end of November and into December with Simon Osler, a keyboard player from Germany, and with Will Lee playing bass. We did his last album, and he's a great musician. And the music is very enjoyable. I'm looking forward to that one too. A whole other kind of playing, but it's good, you know. So I'm fortunate that the gigs now that I'm getting, I musically, they're all different, but I enjoy them all, and that's good.
So once again, make sure you get tickets for the up and coming, the UK tour specifically, but Steve's all over Europe, but UK dates, BlicherHemmerGadd.com. You can get the tickets. They are going fast, so get them now. Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure once again and really enjoyed chatting today.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Good to see you too. Thanks.